Hey YouTube, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to talk about how over the last few years, I've been on a bit of a journey to find the perfect digital note-taking device. Today's video is sponsored by File Sanctuary. File Sanctuary offers fast fibre-to-the-premises broadband with speeds up to 900 megabits per second, available on both the OpenReach and City Fibre networks. We're available to over 50% of UK premises. We have no mid-contract price increases. There are no usage restrictions on the amount you download or upload on your connection. We support both IPv4 and IPv6 natively. All of our support is in the UK, based in the Northeast, and we offer a range of routers for you to choose from. We offer a choice of two excellent Fritzbox routers for you to choose from. We have our flagship model with Wi-Fi 7 and our cost-effective model with Wi-Fi 6, both available at significant discounts for File Sanctuary broadband customers. We also offer Wi-Fi repeaters if you need to get additional coverage of the Wi-Fi signal in your home, and we also offer decked cordless phones that pair with our routers if you use our voice over IP service. Getting started with File Sanctuary broadband is easy. If you'd like to make the switch, visit filesanctuary.net/broadband. So I don't know about you, but I take a lot of notes. For years, I relied on paper and pen, and I just had a messy desk. There was paper absolutely everywhere all the time, and it was really disorganized and just a complete mess. There was clutter all over my desk. Searching through those notes was, relatively easy if it was the last couple of days, but anything, beyond a week or so become quite difficult to search through. So finding, notes from months and months ago. If it was in a pile of paper, it could be anywhere. If it was in a notepad, maybe you flip back a few pages, you'll find it. If it's in previous notepads, it becomes harder and harder as time goes on to find those older notes. So searching was quite difficult with those notes. So a few years ago, I kind of set out on a project to try and solve this and look for a better solution. So my initial thought was the 12.9-inch 2018 iPad Pro. I settled on that because I wanted to try basically doing a few things with one device. Right? I wanted to make it a laptop replacement, and I also wanted to replace my paper notes. That turned out not to be the best plan. iOS is fantastic for being an iPad, but as a computer replacement, there are so many limitations, artificial limitations, just from being an iOS-based device or an iPadOS-based device. With the hardware, Apple used the M series processors in the iPad line, which are the same chips that they use in the MacBooks. So technically, their hardware is very, very similar, but the iPads are very much hamstrung by iOS. The apps are not the same. I do a lot of system administration work, so I rely on terminal applications quite heavily, and trying to do terminal stuff at the same time as lots of other things on an iPad it's possible, but it's a very frustrating experience compared to just having a Mac where you can have multiple terminal windows open alongside your browser tabs, alongside whatever else you're doing. It's just a really frustrating experience on the iPad. Now, there are apps that go a long way towards improving that situation. Blink and Prompt are probably the two best terminal apps I found on the iPad. But yeah, it's not the same as using like iTerm 2 on a Mac at all. So yeah, it didn't really work out for me as a computer replacement. So that just left really the notepad replacement role. Now, because I'd settled for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, it was a pretty hefty device, about the size of, I guess, an A4 notepad, which is fine, but it was a lot heavier than an A4 notepad, which meant it was kind of clunky to cast it around everywhere. So the portability issues really sort of came to a head when combining it with the Magic keyboard case that Apple released, because that essentially just doubled the weight of the iPad. It went from, I think it was about 500 grams for the iPad and then another 500 grams for the case. So you're pretty much getting on for a kilogram, which is, basically in laptop territory at that point. So it's a heavy old thing to cart around. So there are a few apps that I used for taking notes on the iPad. Apple's Notes app at the time was not that great. It's improved a lot in the time since I was using an iPad, but we're talking about 2018 or so. There were a lot of things it didn't do very well. So I kind of settled on Notability as kind of my de facto standard note-taking app, which was nice, but UI was kind of clunky. It did what I needed, but it wasn't smooth, and the friction levels were so high with actually trying to use it effectively. It was often easier. I regularly found myself just grabbing a pen and a piece of paper and just scribbling notes because it was quicker than getting the iPad, unlocking it, getting into the app, creating a new note, things like that. It just took so long that it just wasn't the replacement for paper that I'd hoped it would be. Compounding this was the fact that it would get notifications constantly. So you'd be writing notes and you'd constantly get notifications, apps would pop up wanting to do things, or you get a news report comes through, or someone would send you a text, and all the messages from your phone would come through on the iPad. And it just, yeah, it was very distracting. And particularly if you're in, serious business meeting and someone sends you a silly text, you don't really want that appearing in a banner at the top of your thing when you've got your notepad out in front of someone and you're writing your serious business notes. It's just not really appropriate. So yeah, all of this led me to kind of feel that the iPad Pro was kind of too big and clunky as a notepad, and yet too limited as a computer. So trying to do both of these things with one device just really wasn't the way forward. So I decided that the best thing to do would be to split the roles out. So I replaced the iPad Pro with two devices. I went for the M2 MacBook Air, and I also got a Remarkable 2 digital notepad. Now, as this video is about note-taking, I'm going to ignore the laptop side of that and focus on the Remarkable 2. Now, the Remarkable 2 is an incredible device. It was an immediate, huge improvement over the iPad Pro, like immediately. I absolutely loved that device. With the iPad, I tried a few times, clearing my desk of the paper notes, and within a few weeks, post-it notes would appear, scraps of paper would appear, and the notebooks would come back out, simply because the iPad just wasn't cutting it. When I got the Remarkable 2, I decided to, clear out again, get rid of all the paper notes on my desk, get rid of the post-its, notepads, things like that. And this time they didn't come back. The Remarkable, I could get in and write a note within a second or two. If I needed to, if the phone rang and I needed to take a call, I could instantly be kind of writing my notes down in the Remarkable. It was incredibly nice to write on the Remarkable. The screen had kind of like a paper-like texture on it, and the pen or stylus, I guess, that came with it felt very much like a pencil. So it felt like a pencil dragging across paper, and that was quite a nice kind of touch that kind of made it feel very much like writing on pen and paper, or pencil and paper in this case. The display, in order to save energy, was an e-ink display, and the nice thing about that was it meant that the battery life of the Remarkable was an insane 2 weeks or so on a single charge. Maybe 10 days in real world usage, but still, that's a hell of a long time for any device to last in this sort of day and age where things, we're lucky if we get a day out of them. But to have this thing last 10 days was incredible, to the point where it would actually catch me out if it was out of charge, because I would charge it that infrequently. I would kind of be surprised if it wasn't ready to go after a while. You just get used to it, kind of always having charged and always being ready to take your notes. The design of the Remarkable 2 software is such that they've gone for a completely Spartan, they call it distraction-free writing experience. So it doesn't have any apps. There's no notifications. Nothing comes through from your phone on it. You don't get news alerts. You don't have things popping up left, right, and centre to distract you from what you're doing. The idea is that essentially you're there to write, and you are there to only do that thing. So I guess if you are a writer or something like that, using this to kind of write your books or whatever, you can just go for hours on end without having those distractions, which will inevitably happen on a phone or an iPad or any other sort of device. Eventually, I found that this limited interface started to become problematic. Searching handwritten notes, there was just no way of doing that. Now, was that a downgrade from paper? No, not at all. But was it something I wanted to be able to do as part of this upgrade? Yeah, kind of. I wanted to be able to get to those paper notes that bit easier. Now, obviously, my primary goal was to get rid of all the paper clutter everywhere, and it definitely solved that goal, but it didn't add the nice benefit of being able to search, which is something I had hoped for. Additionally, getting data between my computer and the Remarkable 2, and then back out of the Remarkable 2 to the computer, was not great. You can kind of print PDFs from the computer, and you could use a browser extension to push them into the Remarkable, but getting anything else from any other source is very, very difficult. In fact, well, nigh impossible, really. There were some unofficial clunky methods, and I did use one of these. I think it was called RMAPI, and I'd created a printing script using Automator to basically feed PDF printed from other documents on the Mac into RMAPI, which could then get it onto a Remarkable. But what I didn't realise over using this for maybe 6 months or so is that it was gradually corrupting the database inside my Remarkable. I'm guessing due to some changes between when RM API was first written and the version of the Remarkable OS that I was using at the time. So yeah, that left me in a really sticky situation where suddenly I'd lost at least half the data on my Remarkable 2. Now, thankfully, I contacted support and they were able to go into the backups and actually retrieve those once I had gone through a few layers of consent for them to be able to go in and grab the data. But, really that shouldn't have been necessary. If they'd had more ways of getting data in and out of the Remarkable, I probably could have avoided that whole situation and not lost the data on the Remarkable. So, yeah. And also I got kind of chided a little bit by support for using unofficial tools with the Remarkable. They very much kind of frowned upon that and hinted that this is not something I should be doing with the device. So yeah, that was not a great experience. Now, to be fair, that's not Remarkable's fault. I was using third-party tools, and they can't be held responsible if I use some tools and it breaks stuff. That's not their fault. That's my fault for using those unofficial tools, and I completely take that on board. But it's taking that Spartan aspect that little bit too far, based on what I wanted to use it for. Now, I'm sure there are other people using the Remarkable for writing long form notes and books and things like that, where actually that's fine. They want to keep the data in the Remarkable. They don't care about that. But for what I wanted, it wasn't quite the right fit. So eventually I kind of got frustrated with these limitations and decided it was time to start exploring alternatives after about a year with the Remarkable 2. So what'll be next after Remarkable 2? With the Remarkable 2, I very much liked the e-ink display. The handwriting experience on it was absolutely lovely, but I wanted something that was just a little bit more open. And I had to look at other e-ink style devices and settled on the Books Note Air 3C, which is a lovely device, same sort of size as the Remarkable 2, but added a lot more in terms of features and connectivity. The biggest feature noticeable on this device was the addition of color. So you can actually write in multiple colors, and if you had a color PDF that you imported into it, you can see all those colors nice and neatly on the screen. Not essential, but very much a nice to have. The colors were very faded, with it being an e-ink display. It's not big punchy bright colors. It's very much muted tones and things like that, but still a big step up from the monochrome screen on the Remarkable 2. It integrated with pretty much everything. It integrated with the Microsoft ecosystem. I could get Evernote on there. I could connect to my Apple iCloud notes and things like that using the web. I could install whatever web browser I wanted, Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome or whatever else I wanted, and I could have all of that on there. And the reason I could do all of that was because it was based on Android, and that meant it was quite an open platform and mostly unlocked. It had a custom launcher by Books, but you could even go into the Google Play Store, download your own custom launchers, and really make the device your own if you really wanted to. A lot of those third-party launchers might not be the best on an e-ink screen, and the Books launcher is very much designed for the e-ink screen that's in the device. But a lot of Android apps work very well on the system. And the Books have gone to quite some lengths to allow you to customize almost on the fly the refresh rate of the screen to trade off battery versus quality versus app compatibility for various situations, which is why you can have perfect looking screen for note-taking apps and have very responsive scrolling for web browsing and things like that. I mean, technically you could even watch YouTube videos on there, although that's not something I would recommend as an experience. It was technically possible on that e-ink screen if you turn the refresh rate all the way up, which was quite an interesting experience. The downside to this is that the e-ink compatibility in the Android OS is very much lagging behind by at least 2 major revisions of Android. Now, given that Android only really supports the last 3 major revisions at any one point in time, it means you are basically always going to be running the very oldest version of Android. But this meant that platform security was inevitably going to be a problem. And for that reason, I had to abandon the Books e-ink device and e-ink on Android as a whole, really, because it's not there yet. I'm sure in the future they will get there and it will be much, much better. But right now, at least for e-ink devices, it's not really the right time for that. So I kind of went on the hunt for alternatives again and looking for other devices that I could use that would be a good note-taking device. I wanted something small like the Remarkable 2. I didn't want something massive like the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and eventually started looking at the Microsoft Surface devices. So the Microsoft Surface devices are actually very interesting. I looked at the ARM-powered Surface Pros, and they were very interesting. However, they were the larger screen size, so closer to that iPad Pro screen size, and I wanted something a little bit smaller, a bit more like the books or the Remarkable 2 in terms of size, so that kind of 7-8 inch type screen size. So I looked at the Surface Go line. Now, in terms of CPU power as laptops, they're not going to be great, but I specifically only wanted this as a note-taking device. I didn't want this to be a laptop replacement. So, the intention was I carry around a laptop and this kind of low-cost notepad. So the Surface Go 4 for business actually seemed like a really great device for this. Now, it's not designed as a consumer model. The latest consumer model in the Go line is still a Surface Go 3, but the Surface Go 4 for business is a big step up in terms of performance over that Surface Go 3. It runs proper Windows 11. It's not using e-ink, it's actually got a proper screen on it, a proper LCD screen. It doesn't have the nice textured paper thing, but you can get, I guess you could get those as a screen protector and do that if that's really important to you. But the main thing with this is it's designed as like a OneNote workhorse. If you are in the Microsoft ecosystem and you use OneNote, this really is the best device to use OneNote on. Now, I never really got on with OneNote as a historical Evernote user. The weird infinite zooming thing and the disorganized text typing locations where you could just kind of click anywhere and type text there, it felt very disorganized and messy to me, and I really didn't like that, coming from other note-taking systems. But with the pen, however, OneNote suddenly made perfect sense. You could put those random bits of text wherever you needed around your handwritten notations, or if you're taking a text document, you could annotate around those texts. The infinite zooming made perfect sense for being able to write notes around something else you'd written, and do kind of mind mapping type diagrams and have that infinite zoom in and infinite zoom out as you need to do that, and having the documents extend infinitely to the right and infinitely downwards so you can have as much space as you need was a welcome change, because on the Remarkable 2 and on the books it was based around kind of notepad pages, and if you got towards the bottom of a page and you needed to put an extra line of text, you go on to the next page. Not unusual, it's basically how things would be with paper. But with OneNote, you just kind of scroll up a little bit, you just have more room, and you just infinitely have more room on each kind of sheet of paper because they are kind of infinite documents in that sense. In terms of getting the data in and out of OneNote, you kind of don't really need to, because OneNote is available on the Mac, it's available on the PC, it's available on your phone. Whatever you write in any of those devices is just instantly synchronized across all of them, and you can write on any of those devices. So, for example, while writing this, I wrote my notes up on the Mac and then kind of scribbled over it in pen while reviewing that. Now, because the Surface Go 4 is just a Windows PC, but with a touchscreen and the ability to write on it, you can do all of the things you would do on a normal Windows PC. So you can install OneNote on it and access all of your files and folders that you would have on your other computers. So if I was working on a PDF and I wanted to scribble on that PDF for whatever reason, as I often do if I'm working through a list at work, you can basically print it to a PDF or any other kind of document type, put it in your OneDrive, and then open that file directly on the Surface Go. You don't really have to think about it. The file is just instantly there. As soon as you save it on your computer, it's available to open on the Surface. On Windows, I found there's a really great app called Drawboard PDF, which for annotating PDFs is fantastic. You can highlight, you can kind of write over it, you can do lots of other fancy things in the Pro version. For me, the basic version's enough. Maybe I need to print a PDF and sign it or something like that. Or maybe I'm just scribbling over some kind of checklist at work or something like that. Drawboard PDF makes it really easy to do that sort of thing. So the Surface Go 4 actually completely solved all of my note-taking requirements. It's really nice and easy and portable. In fact, let's have a look at this. So here is the Surface Go 4. It's just a Windows PC, essentially. Use your standard Windows login screen. It's got a nice little kickstand in the back, if I grab it correctly. There you go. So you can kind of put it at any angle that's convenient for you. Makes it nice for watching videos, although it's not really the main purpose of this device. I don't really watch videos on it, but you can. If you're in a pinch and need to watch YouTube, you can absolutely do that. It has a camera on the back, which technically can be used for scanning documents. It has a camera on the front, which can be used for Teams meetings and things like that, although I don't think I've ever used this device for Teams meeting, because it's not, for me, it's not a laptop replacement. It can also do Windows Hello because it's got the kind of Kinect style camera where it can do the face mapping and things like that. So Windows Hello is absolutely supported on this. Um, so yeah, in order to log in, essentially you just look at it and it unlocks. So you don't have to worry about typing in your Windows password or your PIN number. You just look at the device and you're in. In terms of accessories, this keyboard case is fantastic. Comes with a trackpad, really nice keyboard to type on. Trackpad is nice and clicky. Yeah, it's not the best keyboard in the world, but it's quite close to the Apple Magic keyboard that I use for my Mac Studio. It's a little bit smaller on the key size, but it's perfectly nice to type on. And in terms of connecting it to the Surface Pro, it just kind of snaps into place like that, and then you can kind of fold that down onto there. If you are wanting to take notes, it just nice and neatly tucks behind. And when it is tucked behind, it's really smart because it actually turns off all of the keys and the trackpad. So you're not accidentally kind of pressing the keys as you're kind of scribbling notes. It's really smart and kind of prevents that from happening. And if you want to just have something a bit lighter, you can obviously just get rid of the keyboard. But it does act as a nice case to kind of protect this. You've got this kind of nice Alcantara finish on the front of it as well. It kind of gives you this nice protected feel. So the other thing that's really important for obviously note taking is the Surface Stylus. Now it has a really nice sort of rubbery tip on the end of it, so when you are kind of note taking, you get that drag, even though it's like a glass flat screen, you get that kind of drag from that kind of rubberized tip. It actually feels a little bit more like writing on paper than you'd expect. Using the Apple Pencil on your iPad screen was a horrible kind of slippery experience, but you don't get this with this rubbery tip. It's actually really nice. You have a button on the side which allows you to draw around something, so you could select it and move it around or delete it or things like that. That button allows you to do that. It's also got a rubberized tip on the back which works as an eraser. And in terms of battery power, it takes, I believe it's a quad A battery, which I put one in when I got this device and it's still not died yet. It's not rechargeable, but it seems to go on and on and on for the battery life. So far I've not had to replace it. I'm not sure how long the battery actually lasts. I would guess maybe 6 months. So I'm probably running out of time on this before I need to replace it. But yeah, I mean, you can pick them up off Amazon and you're not replacing it every 5 minutes. So that's obviously a very good thing. So would I recommend this for anyone else? Well, if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and you use OneNote, or if you aren't particularly tied in with any ecosystem at the moment and are willing to use OneNote, this is absolutely the best way to go. It's way better than an iPad for note-taking and handwriting experience, so much better. If you need to be able to get data in and out of your device, it just works like any other Windows PC. So if you're using OneDrive, if you're using Microsoft 365 or any of the things like that, it just works. You don't have to think about it. You just work exactly as you normally do on your normal PC, and everything's just kind of on here as well. Would I recommend getting the consumer version, the Surface Go 3? Well, actually no, because it's actually a significant step down in terms of performance from this one. But if you do want to get the Surface Go 4 for business, you can actually get these through File Sanctuary. And I'll leave a link down in the description below. So that is how I finally found the best digital notepad. And I was very surprised that it was going to be the Microsoft Surface. If you'd have asked me at the start, would the Microsoft Surface be the best digital notepad? It probably wouldn't have even factored in my list of options, to be honest. Part of that was due to me, just not really being a fan of OneNote, and part of it was just I'd never really thought too much about Windows tablets. But yeah, surprisingly, it's been by far the best digital notepad solution for me. So that about does it for this video. If you did like this video, please hit that like button. If you didn't, the other button works too. If you're not already a subscriber, if you can subscribe and hit the bell icon, it means you'll get notifications whenever I post a new video. Until next time, thanks for watching. See you later.